Yo, this is Joel Davis,
And I'm Gracie Davis,
and this is Greater Than Real Estate.
where we go deep to find out who you really are beyond real estate. Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of Greater Than Real Estate. Today, we've got our guest, John Jordan, who's a seasoned real estate professional with 6 years of experience helping clients find their dream homes. Born in Fort Worth and raised in South Arlington, John has a deep understanding of the local market. His background in sales, recruiting, and marketing ensures top-notch service, effectively marketing properties, and negotiating favorable deals. Married for 10 years with boy-girl twin toddlers, John values family and community and always puts people first. Living near Martin High School, John serves the Western Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, offering trusted advice for buying or selling in the area. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or an investor, John Jordan is here to help you achieve your real estate goals.
John, we're so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we just kind of wanted to give the listeners a little bit of an overview, but let's kind of go back a little bit. So you grew up in South Arlington, correct?
Yeah, we lived by Timberview High School, but I went to Summit. So kind of Mansfield, Arlington border.
Yeah.
Nice.
So did you stay around here? Did you go to college, or what was your plans after high school?
Well, I did what we called 13th grade. Not the 19th hole. I'm thinking about, because I was at TCC Southeast Campus, which was right by my house, actually.
Okay.
But I swear, half of my graduating class was there, so we called it the 13th grade. It was weird. So I did that for a little while, kind of just getting my basics. My plan was to get my basics and then go to a university. While doing that, though, I ended up taking a job at Best Buy, of all places, and found my love of sales. And I kind of ended up having a situation with a girlfriend where we needed to get an apartment, so I dropped out of college to get full-time. And that's how I ended up dropping out of school the first time to pursue sales. And, people say that it's, everything happens for a reason, but I really enjoyed it, and it was pretty dang good. So,
Really?
yeah, I did. And
So did you only do sales at Best Buy, or did you kind of delve into other career fields when it comes to sales?
Well, that's a long story, but throughout my 13 jobs in my career, I mean, I bounced around a little bit. I did Best Buy, and then I went on to AT&T after Best Buy. That's actually where I met my wife. She was my customer at AT&T. I called it the best sale I ever made. I worked there for 2 years, did really well, and then kind of got tired of the whole retail game, working weekends and everything. And actually, I met my next job's boss. He was a customer of mine as well, and ended up in the medical staffing field. I did business development and recruiting for them for 2 years, all over the phone, so 100% different than being face-to-face and having to learn a completely different tactic. I feel like you almost have to have like a sixth sense in that industry because you're reading people over the phone versus reading them face to face. So I feel like that actually makes my over the phone conversations maybe a little bit more intuitive than most agents, just because I've spent so many times doing 100 dials a day, spending 3 to 4 hours on the phone every day. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
There's more. I mean, I went on to do more recruiting. I was a marketing director for a car stereo shop. I worked for a company called Multiview that sold a lot of digital marketing and publishing. And so, I mean, that's why I say my background's kind of in all those fields, but mostly business development, recruiting, and marketing.
Nice. So how did you transition into the real estate world?
Well, actually, after my last job, which was destined for failure, I was actually driving from Lake Arlington all the way to the Galleria doing recruiting for this company. And
Wow.
then I transferred over to their Fort Worth location, and the guy I was replacing told me, I haven't done anything in 9 months, good luck. And so I was trying to pull that thing out of a hole, and it just wasn't going to happen. And so I ended up losing my job, and I said, you know what, I'm done with this. It seems like the same thing over and over again. I was about 30 years old, and I went back to school. And I went and finished my associate's degree at TCC, Ended up going to UTA. I was actually going to go for my double major in marketing and business management. While I was going to school there, a neighbor, Christopher Berry, if you know his dad, Tim Berry, actually, we would run into him and his wife and kids at our neighborhood pool. And he was a realtor. We always talked about real estate, and I always had a passion for it. And he kind of encouraged me to get my license. When I did get my license, I kind of realized that it was what I was meant to do, and I dropped out again. And so I haven't looked back since, and that was probably right around October 2018, and I got my license in August 2018.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how many hours in school do you have technically?
I think I was 16 hours shy of a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you going to go back?
I've been asked that by my in-laws especially, but no, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I used to think that I would go back to get my broker's license and accelerate the process.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't even know if I want my broker's license anymore because
Yeah.
I've found a place that I like to call home with Signature Real Estate Group.
Yeah.
Obviously, things can change, so if I ever did go back, probably it would be for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love to hear
Nothing
it.
against finishing school. It just wasn't always for me. I'm not a huge fan of being held to a schedule, hence the real estate journey too.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
So did you have a mentor that really helped you when you got into real estate?
So when I first started, I started on a team. The team was not set up to really be a team.
Okay.
I realized that very quickly at Keller Williams, and when I wasn't going to drink the Kool-Aid there, I decided to leave. It's an interesting transition. My parents, my dad's actually the one that really got me into real estate, but my dad had a rental property. We moved from Texas in 1994. Did like a pattern of moving to New Mexico, Arizona, and then back to Texas because my dad was a superintendent for golf courses. And both him and my mom went back for their master's degree at New Mexico State in Las Cruces. And when he moved, he rented that house out. 24 years later, the same renter. He finally had to evict the guy because he just couldn't keep up the payments. He was way undercharging for rent. And when he evicted him, the house was absolutely destroyed. And he had to put like $40,000 into the house to get it back to normal. And then whenever he was choosing a new property manager, he wanted to find somebody that actually did 6-month inspections, checked on the property, make sure that it was maintained. And the company they ended up going with was called TrueGuard Property Management. And Thomas Lale, who's the owner, and I'm still friends with, my mom said he reminded me of him and that I should meet this guy. And I was like, okay, whatever, Mom. And so I actually called him and I was like, hey, so my mom says I should talk to you about working with you guys. And we ended up having lunch over in the stockyards. And I said, hey, well, can I move over and help you out with rental leads and, just try to help, fill your vacancies and also do real estate on the side. And he was like, yeah. So I transferred over literally, I think, December 31st, 2018. And so my first year in real estate, I really don't feel like started until then.
Yeah.
And if you say I had a mentor, I didn't have a mentor until much later. I felt like I was very self-taught, which is a dangerous thing in this industry because if you don't know what you're doing, you can get
A lot in trouble.
You can
Yeah.
get yourself in trouble. Lawsuits can happen. So I did as much as I could. I did a lot of my own research. I actually talked to lenders and asked them advice because some of my lenders used to be realtors. But I'd say my biggest mentor was probably Heather Clay, and I didn't meet her until I switched to Fathom Realty, which was about a year and a half after I was with TrueGuard. And the reason I switched to Fathom was to brand myself better because I was with a property management company. Couldn't really brand yourself whenever you're saying I'm with TrueGuard Property Manager. They're like, oh, is he a property manager or is he a real estate agent?
Right.
I was not a property manager. I know as much as some property managers as far as how property management works, but I was not a property manager. So that's why I went to Fathom to brand myself. And Heather had been in the industry for 12, 14 years. And she kind of took me under her wing and just gave me great advice. And we did a lot of deals together. So she's been invaluable to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. So
I was going to say, so you have a wife, you have 2 kids. Give us a little background on there. You kind of gave us a hint on your wife was the best sale ever. What transpired from that?
Do you want to hear the story of how we met, or do you want to hear all of it, the other stuff?
Let's hear both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we actually have the receipt because I went back and looked it up. I think it was March 21st, 2011. And she came in with her whole family. They were switching over from T-Mobile to AT&T. So I literally sold them everything. I sold them Uverse. I sold them phones. I sold them everything. She was the only one with an iPhone. But what happened was they came in, and, I thought she was very attractive and, would have loved to fast her out. But she was with her family, and that's a little awkward. You can't really do that when you're on the clock. Fast forward another 2 weeks later, they came back, and they said Uverse didn't work. So they had to get a hotspot because she was actually going to her DBU for her master's, and she lived in Burleson. And where they lived, they had no internet. It was so weird. It was just like that corner of the street where she was at didn't have internet at all.
Interesting.
So they got the hotspot. Well, they had gone on a trip, and I think like a month later they came back, and the hotspot wasn't working. And so they needed a new one, but it was outside the return window. My father-in-law's a lawyer, which was really fun to watch him destroy my store manager by having the phone number of the vice president of the company and putting her on the phone with him right in the middle of the store. Long story short, like
wow.
5 times they came in, and every time they kept getting me. It felt like almost like fate, except for the very last time. The very last time they came in, they got my friend Alicia, she was working right next to me. And I said, there's something, I just have to ask this girl out. But again, my father-in-law was always there. Very intimidating guy if you don't know
Sounds
him.
a little scary.
Yeah, he's not. He's a great guy. But yeah, I creeped her phone number because she's the one that had the iPhone, and I just asked her like how everything was going in customer service. And then her mom actually took the phone from her and called me out and was like, "Maya, what great customer service!" And I was like, "All right, yeah, you got me." And so I asked her out. And coincidentally, our first date was actually during the Mavs run to the finals. Took her to Buffalo Wild Wings in Burleson. Of all
B-dubs.
places, yeah. And we watched it was the Mavs OKC series. So that was our first date.
Wow.
So yeah, that was 13 years ago.
Wow.
That's
we
crazy.
have an experience at B-Dubs for our first few days.
Yeah, we do. But that's awesome. So I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, our first date was back at the AT&T office. We went back in.
No. Sorry, no. That's AT&T was not a place for a date.
Well, that's awesome. So you guys have been together ever since, and then now you guys have 2 kids, a little boy and a little girl, twins, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How's that been since being a dad?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a story there too because we did IVF. We started trying whenever she was 30, so 2018, I think, right around the time I got my real estate license. And after 3 years, it just wasn't happening, so we ended up having to go IVF, and it was unexplained actually. They couldn't tell us why it wasn't happening, but yeah, we did, which is an interesting process for anybody, IVF. But we had 6 boys and 2 girls that were completely healthy embryos, and we put in a boy and a girl on purpose. Most people ask us, twins? Oh, well, we did it on purpose, so we only have ourselves to blame. But it's been great. We spent 84 days in the NICU. That part was a little bit challenging in the beginning. Just underdeveloped lungs. They were born at 29 weeks. And so what was really probably one of my proudest moments of all that was being able to be there every day.
Yeah.
My wife did not have benefits anymore from her job. They literally cut her insurance off, I think the day after we got out of the NICU. Her job just stopped offering insurance. It was rough back then.
That's
COVID
weird.
And everything. And then insurance premiums were through the roof. But yeah, I was able to be there every day. And she basically took the whole half of the year off because she was going to be like, no insurance anyway. What's the point? So we both were there every day. I was able to work, bounce back and forth from Cook Children's Hospital, bring my laptop with me. But I saw my kids every day through those 84 days, and I could have never done that if I had a corporate job. So the flexibility of real estate, I've always enjoyed for those reasons especially, but that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the most important lesson that you've learned about being a dad, being a husband, and making it through those hard times?
Patience. We joke with ourselves whenever we notice that they've kind of leveled up because, once you feel like you've mastered something as a parent, they throw a whole nother level of challenge at you.
Yeah.
So having twins, we're very blessed. We have a village.
Yeah.
It takes a village, right? Our parents both help out with watching the kids, so we don't have to take them to daycare, and that saves us a lot of money. My wife works from home ever since COVID. She's a therapist, so she's been doing remote telehealth.
Wow.
And I obviously have an office at home too, so we're just able to be with them every day. I'd say what I've learned is kids are amazing, they're fascinating, and they're like the best reality TV show you can have.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, transitioning into like real estate, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career in real estate?
You have to love people, which I do. You have to love to help people. You have
Yeah.
to want to give people advice and see them better their lives, and not look at it as just a dollar sign, right? Like every person I help, I look at them individually and look at what they have going on in their lives. I talk to them about their future. I ask them how long they plan on being at that house, what their goals are. I explain to them that most people buy 4 houses in their lifetime, and here's why. And I think it's
Yeah.
important to break those things down for people instead of just being like, yeah, you want to go look at this house? Great. You want to write a contract? Great. Like, I literally look at the house with them, tell them things, give them ballpark prices on what things would cost to fix. Educating your clients is the most important thing, I think, is being a realtor. Because at the end of the day, I say this a lot to my clients. My job is to provide you options. Whether or not you choose to use those options, that's up to you. But at the end of the day, I'm a fiduciary to my client. And I think it's important that they understand that.
Yeah.
Because I'm always going to push back if I think they're doing something wrong or if they're doing something that could put them in jeopardy, just so they know. And if they want to keep moving forward, that's totally up to them. But
Yeah.
I'm going to at least let them know and not just keep my mouth shut if it's something that's concerning
Yeah.
about the house or what they're doing with their purchase. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of variables into that. Joel can tell you all about that too.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
you made the transition from Fathom to Signature Real Estate
Yeah.
Group. What made you want to go to Signature Real Estate Group?
Oh, Nav Singh, 100%. We were introduced by Candy Patterson over at Community National Title. She thought that we'd be a good fit. Heather and I were actually in the process of trying to start a team over at Fathom, and they didn't really have a good way to do that unless you were married. If you can be a husband and wife, you can start a team and both be team leaders. But Fathom had it to where one of us had to be the team lead and one of us didn't. We were trying to do it as partners. Also, we'd been with Fathom for a while, and I would say that the support and the camaraderie was something that I wanted from a local kind of smaller niche brokerage.
Yeah.
Everything was 100% online with Fathom. And nothing against the brokerage, but I wanted something that was a little bit more close to home. And little did I know, when we met Nav and moved over, he not only had an office like 15 minutes away from me, but then he bought another one that's now 7 minutes from my house, right by Veterans Park, where you office now, Gracie.
Yeah.
And it's been great because Nav is just one of those guys that he just truly cares. He always answers his phone. I told him, I don't know how you do it. The guy's so busy. He's just such a family guy, but he also just really cares about his agents. And he's told me before, he's like, I only want agents that I want here. I don't want to just bring an agent here just to bring an agent here. I want someone that fits our culture. I want someone that wants to, be a part of the community and, thrive together and help each fellow agents. And I gotta say, it's been a good experience there. Everybody really looks out for one another and always lends a hand whenever needed.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about some of your client experiences. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And the crazy.
Oh, okay. I have a recent one that was pretty crazy. So I was working with a client. They're pregnant, and they're actually due in August. We started looking at houses back in probably April or May. Actually, I guess it was May. And looked at several homes in the 76013 Arlington area. Other areas, too, kind of started to open our search up a little more because they needed a 2-1 buy down in order to afford their monthly payments. And so we ended up looking at a place up near Cookson 30. So just like right outside Arlington off Interstate 30. And found a house, coincidentally, 2 doors down from a listing I had on Kelly Court. And so it's funny, we literally drove by my sign on the way to the house to go look at it. Had a couple other houses that didn't work out, came back to that one, put an offer on it, got it accepted. 24 hours later, the listing agent calls me and says that the seller wants to back out the deal. And I'm like, well, the seller can't back out the deal. And explained to me that they had a house that they had put a contingency offer on that had fallen out of they fell out of contract with because he hadn't sold his house in time.
Yeah.
And then he thought he could go back to them, and they were like, no, we're already under contract with somebody else, sorry. And so he was panicking because he thought he wasn't going to be able to sell his house. Or sorry, he thought he was going to sell his house and then he was going to be homeless. And so we go back and forth. It gets real ugly sometimes with certain clients when it comes to the earnest money and when it comes to, thinking that you have your pregnant wife and situation figured out. And both the husband and the seller were both very stubborn people. And the buyer actually lawyered up and was threatening to take him to court.
Oh,
and I'm in the middle of this going, oh boy, this is about to get real interesting. And we're getting real like email, text only, trying not to, put either one of us in danger of a lawsuit. And then luckily, it actually ended up working out. The seller called me, which was really strange. I was picking up dinner for the family, and he called me, and I'm like, hello. And he's like, this is Scott. This is the guy on the other end of the transaction. And I'm like, well, we're really not supposed to be talking in this situation. He's like, well, I want you to let you know I fired my other agent, and I'm getting a new agent, and I'd still love for your clients to buy my house. And I'm like, are you sure? Because he didn't seem that way. He's like, I think a lot of things were misconstrued. And so he ended up hiring a new agent, which she was great and definitely a lot better. Because what part I did leave out is when we tried to do an inspection on the house, the previous listing agent actually called the inspection company and told them, don't bother showing up because the door's not going to be unlocked. Like, it was really ugly.
Wow.
So last minute before all this went into full-on lawsuit, basically we agreed to go back under contract. And he was going to pay like essentially a sorry fee
Yeah.
to add it into the seller credit to make the sellers happy for their lost time. We
Wow.
also did a 45-day lease back because he felt like he needed that much time in order to find another house. And gosh, just so many things throughout that transaction. We just actually wrapped it up last week.
Wow.
He literally took the full 45 days, even though he closed 7 days after we closed in May. Yeah, in May. It's been 45 days. So it
Wow.
literally came down to the
That's
wire.
crazy.
But yeah, that transaction almost went to court at least 2 or 3 times, and that was a doozy.
Have you ever been to court on a transaction yet?
I have not.
So tell us about the best experience that you've had with a client.
Or
Or the
most memorable.
Most memorable. That's tough. I mean, I've helped some of my best friends sell their first homes and buy their second home, and that's been pretty enjoyable because, it's always a stressful thing to move whenever you have a family, and the thought of moving daunts a lot of people. But I've told them, when the interest rates were really low, especially during COVID and right after COVID, whenever it was kind of being dragged on because they didn't want to raise rates too quickly back then, which caused the steep rate hike in 22. Take advantage of these rates because your buying power is going to decrease, and who knows what's going to happen with the market as this moves forward. We're already seeing things heat up. And so my friends Lee and Ashley and my friends Austin and Ashley, both Ashleys, they ended up selling their first home and buying their next home. And they're both sitting in very, very pretty positions with their equity, and they have low interest rates. And, I think they've thanked me a few times to push them along and give them the knowledge of making that decision. So I'd say that was very rewarding. I'd say even buying my own house was really rewarding because I bought my first house in 2013, barely qualified for it. We sold it in 2021, made $172,000. We were able to buy our second home when we knew the twins were on the way and put 10% down, got a 2.99 interest rate, put a bunch of money into the house, remodeled it in like 3.5 weeks with a lease back. It was crazy. I was there every day for like 8 hours. I felt like a construction foreman.
Wow.
Would never do it again for free. But we were able to move in, and I couldn't afford my own house right now. Like, we're sitting in a really good position, and I set myself up for the future, and I plan on being in that house for a long time. I want to try and pay it off before the kids start school, college, and, basically use that money to go towards college tuition. So I tell people all the time, how long do you plan on being in this house? Because depending on how long you plan on being in this house would depend on how much house you want to buy, how long you want to be there. And I remember telling my wife when we bought our house, and I convinced her to look in 21, I said, first of all, we need more space for you to be able to work from home, and the kids would have to share a room. And I don't know if how I feel about the kids sharing a room. I know a lot of people do it, but twins crying and waking each other up did not sound fun. But I also told her, I said, man, with this market's going, this was in like February, January of 21, before the market really took off. I said, where this market's going, who knows how much house is going to cost 5-10 years from now. We ended up getting our house for like $392,000 because I waived my commission. So I think the seller got $404. At one point in 22, my house was worth $530,000. And I just couldn't imagine not being in the situation I am now with our payment and where it is and everything. So I always tell people real estate's about timing. It's timing for you in your life. It's also timing in the market and just what's going on and catching it when prices are down versus whenever they're really high. So I tell people that when they're buying, you buy right now, I think the prices are probably as low as they may ever be. 2 years from now, we could be making 2022 look like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Do you think people can truly time the market?
I mean, I would never put a guarantee on something like that. I usually try to ballpark it for people, but if you look at it historically, usually every 4 to 5 years is whenever the market kind of does its swing, and the Fed will raise rates to control inflation, and they'll kind of ebb and flow. And right now, I think we've been sitting at the top of this roller coaster is the analogy I've been using, just waiting for them to finally say go.
Yeah.
And we've gotten some good news, and they've kind of waffled a little bit here over the last few months, but I feel like the announcement of them cutting rates one more time this year, 4 times next year, and then 4 more times in 2026 is why I said what I said. So I think 2026 is going to be a really big year in real estate. And could you predict when the next one is going to be after that? I'd have to see what happens. I'd have to see what happens with our economy and what the Fed determines is necessary for rates. But usually every 4 to 5 years is a pretty good guess.
Yeah. So are you a big book reader? Is there any book that you've read that has kind of helped your real estate career go to the next level?
I'm actually not a big reader.
Okay. Or a podcast?
I've watched some podcasts here and there. I don't know. I'm too ADD for all that. Like I honestly, I learn a lot of stuff by like going to trainings and having conversations with people like you and Nav and Heather. And I like to surround myself with other realtors for that reason, because I feel like the more you absorb from other people's knowledge, or maybe the ones that do read books, that's something that you're kind of taking the cliff notes of what they already learned.
Yeah.
But also I think it's real life experiences. You can read a book all you want, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it reflects your market. DFW is pretty unique compared to the rest of the nation. So whenever people talk about things that are happening in our industry, it does not always apply to DFW.
Very true. Yeah.
So I always kind of take things with a grain of salt. I talk to more people that I know locally and just use what I hear through the grapevine more locally here to use this knowledge for my clients. But also I have good resources at Community National Title with Candy and her husband Bradley, and they keep me up to date on a lot of things. So I try to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about if you could write a book? Because I know you have a lot of interests outside of just real estate. What would you write a book about if you had the opportunity?
I don't know if I could write a book. I could probably do a podcast, but write a book. I mean, my 3 favorite things in life, besides family, would be probably music, sports, and real estate. Like those are my 3 favorite things to talk about. Music would be number 1.
All right. What type of music though?
I'm an old soul.
Okay, so we're not talking like 90s R&B hip hop or
I mean, I like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, my favorite bands would be Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Tool is another one of my favorite bands. So there's a 90s grunge.
Motorhead?
I mean, I like Motorhead. They're not one of my favorites. But
The Styx?
I love like Rolling Stones, Neil Young. Also, stuff from my youth like Linkin Park, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm all over the place, but I think the 60s and 70s were the best eras of music, hands down.
If you could have one concert that you could go to, or one that's happened, or one that you never got to do, who would be the one person that you would see?
David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, hands down.
Really?
Hands down.
Why?
He's amazing. I actually saw Roger Waters at Coachella. It was one of the greatest concert experiences of my life. It was Neil Young, Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, The Who, and Roger Waters. and it was called Old Cella, but the concert was called, people were calling it Old Cella. It was called The Desert Trip in 2016. And I saw Roger Waters, and it was amazing. But Gilmore wasn't there, and he was definitely missing. He is one of the most amazing guitar players I've ever heard because he just really takes you on a journey with the way he plays the guitar.
Yeah.
Second would probably be Led Zeppelin whenever they were in their prime when John Bonham was still alive. That would have been pretty epic to see live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of my answers would be people that are, no longer with us. Like, I would have loved to seen Freddie Mercury live. I think he was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, the list could go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So do you play an instrument?
I don't.
Wow, that's shocking.
I know. If I could play an instrument, I would have loved to play the drums, but I don't think I have the rhythm for it. I tried playing the guitar. My uncle actually owns a music store in Las Cruces, and he's a drummer. But he got me a guitar when I was younger, and I tried to learn how to play, and it just didn't stick. So I still have it.
Hey, you can always pick it up.
I could. I've thought about it. I really have. I mean, I do love music. I love to be around it. I love live music. I go to concerts a lot. Trying to get my wife more into going to concerts. It's like our new date night,
Yeah.
Night on the town, dinner, and a concert, right? So it's easy enough to get a sitter for. But I've been to a lot of concerts.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what about sports? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned you love
Yeah.
sports.
In the
Let's hear-
DFW, we got soccer, women's basketball, NBA, NFL, baseball, hockey. Am I missing anything else? Probably ultimate frisbee. I don't even know if
I
that's a
think
sport.
lacrosse and rugby have kind of made a little bit of
Really?
an intro
Interesting.
to the market here recently.
So you got your pick here in DFW. What's your go-to?
Like my go-to to play or watch?
Watch.
Oh, football.
Don't
Football.
say the Cowboys.
No, I'm actually not a Cowboys fan. It's conflicting.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Who's your
My-
team?
My dad is a Redskins fan.
Oh, okay. Well,
My dad he raised me to hate the Cowboys, and I don't hate the Cowboys, but I couldn't break his heart and root for the Cowboys.
yeah.
So when I was younger, when I was coming into my own, and I've been watching football every Sunday since I was probably born.
Yeah.
Like, I just love football. I jokingly say, like, football is kind of like my religion. Like, go to church, watch football on Sundays,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not to sound sacrilegious, but when I was coming into my own on probably around the time I was like 7 or 8, I was really into like Brett Favre and John Elway. I just thought those two were just so amazing. Like,
Yeah.
strong, ridiculous arms, mobile quarterbacks, tough as nails. And I watched the Super Bowl where they play each other, and I've kind of always rooted for the Broncos and the Packers ever since.
Okay.
Just because of that. It didn't hurt to have Aaron Rodgers come right after Favre.
Yeah. He's
I mean,
gone now.
I
How do you feel?
know.
How do you feel? Are you still grieving?
I'm still a Green Bay Packers fan, but I wish him nothing but the best. Last year was actually really tough not having him out there because I feel like the remaining years of watching his talent are slipping away, and it's going to be a really sad day.
Yeah.
Seeing all the people I grew up with retire now,
Yeah.
it's rough. I watched my dad go through it, and now I'm going through it. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
Tom Brady's gone, Peyton Manning's gone. Some of these people that you watched for decades
Yeah.
are gone, and it
Yeah.
sucks because obviously there's always going to be the next guy. But,
Yep.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty hard to top some of the people we've had retire recently.
Yeah.
And I love the game of football. I play fantasy football, but I also just appreciate the game. So, do I root for one specific team or two specific teams? Honestly, I just like to watch it all. I love the drama. I love all of it.
Are you a big college football guy?
I've never got into as much at college football.
Okay.
I'd say I love more attending the games than I do watching
Gotcha.
on TV.
Yeah.
Been to a couple TCU games, and it's a lot of fun. Went to a Baylor Texas Tech game when Mahomes was with Tech at Jerry World, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't get into as much. I guess it's because I don't have an alumni. Like, UTA doesn't have a football team, right? And I
Right.
didn't go to a university with a football team. You did, right? So you always
Yeah. I
have-
don't watch them.
but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
you kind of have that. I feel like that experience in college of going to the games kind of is what the nostalgia is for you. So because I didn't have that university experience, I guess that's why I didn't get into the college football as much.
That makes sense.
Plus, if I'm being honest, the officiating and the talent is just not quite there, and some of the rules frustrate me at times versus the NFL.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge football fan. I'd say my second favorite would be basketball, just because I always grew up playing basketball and played every day, like with my neighborhood and stuff like that. And then probably my favorite to play, and I still watch, but most of the majors is golf. Golf has been always been. My dad was superintendent for golf courses. So I was practically raised on the golf course.
Yeah.
Until he lost that USGA card whenever he started his own irrigation business, and we moved back to Texas in 2000. So the free golf went away, but I still play a lot. I've been playing since I was 3.
Dang.
So I should be better, but but I love the game, right? It's just one of those things where it's my mini vacation, get out on the course with friends and just kind of.
Do you watch golf much?
I do.
Who's your guy on the tour that you really like?
I mean, I was always a Tiger guy. Like Tiger's always been one of my all-time faves, but I really was rooting for Spieth there for a while, and he's kind of fallen off.
Yeah.
I've always respected Rory. This last Sunday was hard to watch.
Yeah, that was tough.
I love Scotty Scheffler. What's not to like? Dallas boy. He's a good guy. Love the way he handled the whole situation with his
crazy.
Yeah, that situation. And there's a few others that I like, but those are the ones I really root for. So some of the old ones, I like Ricky. I like Justin Thomas. Those guys are all pretty cool. They're all friends too. So
yeah,
I watch Full Swing.
I really loved that, going behind the scenes. I wish they did that more. I mean, I guess you kind of have it with football and Hard Knocks, but
they did that show Quarterback. Did you watch that?
Yeah, they did that one too.
I liked that. Man, I got a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins after watching that.
Oh yeah,
man, what they go through and watching his physical therapy and all the things he went through in the hits.
Yeah,
they're mic'd up on those hits, and he's like on the ground, just like, oh, and you're just like, damn, that looked bad.
Yeah, really it's hurt. Crazy.
And he wears that
rib protector
thing, and I get it now. My gosh,
it's tough.
But he actually said something that actually stuck with me. He says, they keep asking me why I do this, and they say, he goes, you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to play this sport because you're literally putting yourself out there to absolutely get destroyed every single Sunday. And he's like, I love it. He's like, I live for it. I think I feed off of it. So yeah, he's a little crazy.
You're a little crazy, just a little bit. So who in your life has had the biggest impact and influence on who you are today?
Oh, probably my dad. My dad is probably my hero, just my inspiration. I worked with him when I was in high school. I'd work with him in the summers when he had his irrigation business.
Ooh, that's tough work.
Yeah. And he'd wake me up at 4 or 5 in the morning. I'd throw on some shorts and a t-shirt, sleep in the car on the way to the job, and he'd pay me like $5 an hour to just literally change stations on the clock or flag heads or do a little digging here and there. He did most of the work, but
yeah,
I saw his work ethic. I saw him sweat. I always told him, I was like, why don't you ever hire anybody? And he would always tell me, you ever driven by the city when they're fixing something? I'm like, yeah, I've seen them. They have all the tape up and everything. He's like, you ever notice how there's like 4 or 5 guys standing around a hole and there's a guy in the hole? He's like, I'm the guy in the hole. And I'm like, okay. Because he honestly never really could trust anybody to deliver the same level of service, quality, and, just do the job right. Mm-hmm. And so I always learned from him that honesty, integrity, making sure that you did your best every time, not charging full price for everything in situations because it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I watched him do free stuff for his friends all the time. I'm like, you don't charge him for that? Don't worry about it. So you just spent like 3 hours in 105-degree temperatures, putting in putting in sprinkler system. He never charged anybody for his time that were his friends. So him and actually back in 2007, him and I actually almost went into the house flipping business. We were taking a lot of classes, learning as much as we could. I was reading some books back then and learning some stuff about real estate. And we actually opened our own LLC. It was called J4 Home Solutions, and he wanted to turn it into a family business and get my mom and my sister involved. And then the bubble burst happened, and we were like, oh, maybe this is not the time to jump into this industry.
Yeah.
I always kind of wish we did because I was talking about getting my real estate license back then.
Yeah.
And, life happens, and you got to make money, and you got to pay the bills. And back then, I guess I didn't have the confidence to take on a 100% commission job or business. And so we didn't do it. But I think that was one of the first times I really fell in love with real estate, and I will always thank him for that. But just little things. He just always gives me great advice. I mean, with money, with finances, with, job situations. He fixes a lot of stuff around the house. I'm not nearly as handy as he is. So I told him this last Father's Day, I was like, I feel like I've got some work to do if I'm going to be like you for my kids whenever they're older. And he's like, you'll learn. He's like, that's the best part, is helping out your family and being there for when you need them. So he's kind of always been my inspiration. He's one of my best friends too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really
that.
cool. So in this business, you have highs and lows. What defines success for you from the beginning till now?
You know, a lot of people would probably say building a real estate empire, building your own brokerage, being, hugely successful. In my opinion, I think it's just getting out of corporate America and being able to sustain a real estate business. Always challenging yourself to be better, spending money to make money, being a go-to for your community and your friends and your family. How much money you make is irrelevant. Whatever you make to support your family, in my opinion, is good enough. But not having to go work for someone else, it's priceless. It's priceless. I've never been one to do well with authority of any shape or form. So working for myself has been crucial for me, because at the end of the day, I only have myself to blame if I don't do well. Yeah. And I think that motivates me. It motivates me not only for my family, for my success. I'm a very competitive person. And so that's one of the things that I think makes me a good realtor too, is I don't like to let deals fall through. Like, I got a listing under contract last week. I've had on the market since the beginning of December.
Wow.
And they've been through the entire ebb and flow of this year with the rates and the market and all the changes. And they're frustrated. And at one point they talked about letting me go. And I told them, I said, I can only do so much. They had young kids, and their showing windows were like 4 hours notices. At one point they were only allowing showings on the weekends. They didn't do price cuts as much as I would have liked. And for those reasons, it sat on the market for a long time. But I got a buyer on the hook about a week and a half ago. And it was a newer agent. I could tell by her license number, of course. But I essentially did her job for her. I got a lot of things lined up for them to be able to make that deal work, because their biggest pain was not spending too much and keeping their payment under a certain amount. And I went back and forth with this agent, figuring out, what the best loophole was for their loan. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, as you know. I talked to them about the 2-1 buy down. I talked to them about, how to buy their rate down and all these things, and just really fought to keep that alive. And also, on the other end, encouraged my seller to be open-minded about where we could get the bottom dollar. And we eventually got it under contract, and we closed next month. So I don't like to lose. It's not in my nature.
Yeah.
And so that competitive nature also comes along with fighting for my clients with negotiations, but also fighting for just getting the job to the finish line. I had another one. I didn't tell you this one. One of the craziest transactions I've been a part of was a single wide on 5 acres in Joshua.
Don't tell me it was moved.
It had been moved.
Oh, there it is.
And it was not anchored to the ground.
Oh.
And it had been added on to. There were so many hurdles in that transaction, which ended up taking 5 months, by the way.
Holy.
And it also included me talking to the seller and encouraging him that things were going to get done. And the lender that I was working with at the time, which I didn't use him again after another couple transactions, but somehow he got it to the finish line. Because, as you know, a single wide going FHA, mind you, is not something...
And it also being removed and not being tied down properly for a structure and engineer's report. Wow.
And this buyer, sweetheart, she was actually she loved horses, and she had a horse. And this had property with horse stables and stuff. And so it was her dream to fill all the stables and have multiple horses, because she loved to ride and she loved raising horses. And her mom were both going to live there. And the seller was, I guess, affluent enough to not, be in a hurry. He understood her passion for it. At one point, I think even they were talking. It was the weirdest transaction ever. The agent that I was dealing with was older. She was kind of a legend in the Burleson area. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I dealt with her assistant a lot. And we would talk a lot and just trying to get this thing to the finish line. I don't know how I did it, I don't know how I kept it together, but I did. And that transaction being 5 to 6 months, I tell people about that sometimes, and other agents are just like, "You did what?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, I would have given up after the first month. I'd have
That's
been like, "This is
crazy.
impossible." But somehow we got it through. The seller had to anchor it down. He had to do all this stuff to either replace the roof. He had to do all these things to get this loan to go through.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been that's probably one of my greatest success stories, to answer your earlier question, because when we got to the finish line, she was so happy and so grateful to me. And I wish her a happy birthday every year. We keep in touch, and she's just a sweetheart. So I was very happy for her. And I check in with her now, and I'm like, "So how many horses are we up to?" And she's like, "Still one. They're expensive, but I'm working on it." So yeah, so that was crazy.
That's
so
cool.
cool.
So what do you believe sets your industry apart from other industries that you could be working in?
You know, throughout my 13 jobs, throughout my life and school and all the things, I feel like people fall into a certain category in life, right? Some people are meant to be engineers. Some people are meant to be doctors. Some people are meant to work with their hands or, have a trade. I never really fell in a certain category. Like, even when I was going to school, like, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I used to think I wanted to do logistics. I used to think I wanted to be a lawyer. Didn't like school enough for that. I loved helping people and defending people, so I thought I'd be good at it. I probably would have been, but 7 years in school, my ADD brain would not handle that. So I guess to answer your question, like, the one thing I love about real estate is you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
Anybody can get their license. Not everybody can succeed. But I also love the fact that you literally can make as much money as you want. You just have to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
And, being a business owner has been an interesting transition for me. I've learned a lot about taxes. Don't go into that too much. I learned a lot about taxes and, ways to improve your quality of life. I've learned a lot about spending money to make money and, using that tax write-off to your advantage, because you need to do that to find clients, especially whenever you have tough years in real estate like last year. A lot of people took jobs last year. I think I heard something about nationwide, it was like 100,000 people left the industry between the rates and the whole NAR situation.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And it's like, and every time I hear that, I'm like, good. Because if you're not going to make it in this industry, more for me.
Yeah.
The strong survive. But also, I think it's a really good avenue for me to channel all the things that I love a lot about helping people.
Yeah.
All the women in my life are nurturers. My wife's a therapist. My mom was a social worker. My mother-in-law was a physical therapist. And I love helping people. I love giving younger people advice and trying to, guide them through, figuring out what they want to do in life, give better advice than I, maybe follow sometimes. But I think for me, I love helping people. I love helping people. We wear a lot of hats as realtors. Sometimes you're listening to them vent. Sometimes you're giving them financial advice. Sometimes you're giving them real estate advice. Sometimes you're having to make uncomfortable conversations a reality for them.
Yeah.
And so I think I just love that every single transaction, every single client is different. It's never the same. Where else can you work or do something where you're not doing the same thing every day or every week or every month? Every transaction is different. I learn something new from every transaction. And I actually love the challenge of taking on those new things. So that's what I feel like real estate is different than most industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hit on advice in there. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self for the first time you dropped out of college, what would you tell him?
Buy Bitcoin. I'm sorry. I would have said get my real estate license.
Yeah.
I mean, when I turned 18, I was working at a warehouse, which was a total dead-end job. The best thing that ever actually happened to me was getting fired from there. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, came in and bought the company I was at, and they kind of axed a lot of people, and I was one of the casualties. Kind of messed up the way I was fired, but whatever. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because then that's whenever I went and worked at Best Buy, because I had friends that worked there, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Love electronics. I loved working at Best Buy. I'm such a nerd, y'all. Like, I may not look like a nerd, but I'm a total nerd. Like, I love electronics. I'm such an Apple fanatic and home theater, and I'm an audiophile, which goes back to my music stuff. But
Yeah.
I think that 18-year-old self, I would have said get a real estate license, because at that time, I didn't have a serious relationship that I was going to move in with a girlfriend, and I could have been living at home and maybe started out my real estate journey, built up my book of business, and then eventually moved out.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have said that to them. You know why? Because I never would have met my wife. I mean, I feel like everything happens for a reason in our lives. Our experiences in life make us who we are. You know, all the experiences that I had at my last jobs, whether it was customer service, whether it was, you know, negotiating, whether it was calling doctors' offices and telling them why they should spend $25,000 to hire a physician because they're going to make them $1 million, and explaining that to some doctor that doesn't necessarily know business very well.
Yeah.
The multiple things that I've sold, it really molds your abilities, and it prepares you for situations. The willing to help people and all that stuff that's just who I am. The skills that I've learned along the way, I feel like, are what makes me a good realtor. And like I said, the competitive nature, the negotiating, always trying to fight to win. I feel like it's a win when I win for my client. I know they win, but I'm like, yes, yes, I got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saved them a bunch of money. I got them a huge seller credit. I got their payment where they wanted it to be. I saved them money out of their pocket with down payment assistance. It's all about providing them the option that best suits their needs.
Yeah.
And figuring out where their pain is and trying to solve that problem for them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think the Lord puts things in our lives to shape us and to help us for the future. So I think that's cool that, you know, I've never heard somebody say that's what I would tell them, but I wouldn't tell them that because of your wife. So I know I can definitely say I went to A&M 100% to meet my wife. It wasn't to play baseball, because we know how that turned out, but definitely to meet you for sure.
There you go. And again, like, could things have been different? Could I have not had 13 jobs in my life? Yeah. But again, those experiences, and also, like, there were times where, you know, if you don't have a college degree and you're in sales, it is rough out there. Let me tell you, there are a lot of jobs out there that'll pay you $40,000, maybe $50,000 salary plus commission, but the chances of you making over $70,000, $80,000 a year is very, very slim, right? And a lot of these jobs, what they'll do, they just churn and burn. They use you until you start to flame out, and then they get rid of you.
Find somebody
else.
else.
So there were times where I was unemployed, and it was tough, you know. Bonded with my cat during those times, you know, and it was bored out of my mind, and I hated it. I hated being unemployed. I always loved having something to do, but it also taught me humility. It taught me that, you know, appreciate the things you have, not the things you want. It taught me that you really only need to make as much money as you need to make to provide for your family and be happy. Don't have to kind of try to keep up with the Joneses and things like that.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I think back on those times where I was taking these jobs just to take a job. Now I'm in a business because I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't ever want to have to take a job again, and I will fight tooth and nail to keep my real estate license and protect it for those reasons. And, you know, there's a lot of things you can do with your real estate license, of course, but you know, I just want to continue to build my brand, maybe build a team one day, and just kind of try to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
You know, eventually I'll probably want to have a little bit more free time, but at the same time, you know, a lot of people hate the showing process, and they hate some of the nitty gritty of the real estate. I honestly love most of it. I just look at it as another challenge and just on to the next one.
Yeah.
And I try to market myself that way. I try to ask referrals. I try to, you know, always ask my friends, hey, I'll take you out to dinner as a thank you. You know, steak dinner for you and the wife on me. Things like that. Because it's important to know that you really do value them sending you business. And that's how you make it. I kind of have more of an old school mentality when it comes to that. I try to keep it with Nav and try and do my social media game. But at the end of the day, I am a huge networker.
Yeah.
I love helping people. I send Gracie business. I try to send you business. We're working on that. I try to send all my friends that have businesses business.
Yeah.
If I meet a contractor that does a really good job for me, I recommend them to my clients. I'll put my John Jordan stamp of approval on it. I will not put my stamp of approval on somebody that I've never used, or somebody that I can't vouch for, or somebody that I don't trust or know their integrity as a person, because that could badly reflect on me. But when it comes to helping my friends and helping their business, I know what that's like. And I love helping my friends. It gives me joy, and my family too. So,
yeah,
you know, if I can give them advice or find them a way to save money or give them, you know, a better deal on something, I live for those moments.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier just about you and your wife, and I love to know. I mean, we see our marriage as like we're a team, right? And we're always working to make each other better. So, what are some things that you can tell us like about your wife and how she's encouraged you, helped you through the hard times, but really just pushed you to lead your family well?
You know, marriage is all about compromise, and marriage is all about, like you said, being a team.
Yeah.
You know, having twins. You know, it's us versus them, right? Like it's we're on the same team. So even whenever the screaming's at an all-time high, or we're frustrated, or we're tired, we always do the same team. A little high five. My wife is an amazing woman. She's brilliant. In fact, she's severely underpaid for what she knows how to do. She has her master's, but I mean, she's talking about going back to her doctorate. I think she'll actually make a great professor. So I'm hoping she does that one day. TCU, maybe free school for the kids and free football games. Wishful thinking, but it may happen. But no, my wife is she's brilliant. Like I ask her advice on a lot of things. She's honestly kind of my secret weapon in some ways. Like I have her help me look for houses for clients sometimes whenever they want something specific. I set up lists for people and I can fine tune it as much as I can. She's really good at like, what are they looking for? And then she'll send me a house. And sometimes they'll buy that house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks, babe. Like, good
Yeah.
job. Like, I tell people this too. I'm like, I'm bringing in my secret weapon because you want something very specific. Let me help you find that. And by me, I mean my wife.
Teamwork.
But no, like, yeah, she gives me advice on how to handle situations with my clients sometimes too. Being a therapist, she'll hear some of my phone calls, or she'll hear some of my situations, and she'll give me great advice. I'm not saying I'm a great listener because I like to give too much advice, but she's made me a better listener and a better person at handling frustrating situations with my clients. And I think that's made me a better realtor too. When it comes to just being a better man, she just balances me out. I'm such an outgoing extrovert, and she's an introvert, or she's an extrovert introvert. I used to love to go out and always constantly, be out and about. And she's kind of reined me in a little bit more of a homebody than I used to be. I kind of blame COVID for that a little bit, but I'm going to give her some credit too. But yeah, no, she's just, she's very smart. She has her father's brain. She probably would have been a fantastic attorney. And she used to run the company that she works for now, that she's been with for 8 years. She actually stopped doing it because it wasn't worth it for her anymore. She missed her clients, and she was like, I'm just tired of being in charge. I would rather be a peon. She's an amazing mother. She's so organized. Everything has its place in our house. There's a Radiohead song. There's a Radiohead song that I told her is like the OCD national anthem, and I'm like, this is your song.
Are you OCD?
No. I was, man, before I met her, I'll be honest, I was a little bit of a slob. Like she got me in check. We do have a maid too. That helps. My mom kind of ruined cleaning for me. We had to clean every Saturday morning. Hated it.
Yeah.
So we have
Because it got in the way of football.
No, Saturday morning.
Okay. College football. I forgot you're in NFL.
It got in the way of me playing basketball, or pretty much doing whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
I was on the golf team in high school. But that was the extent of my extracurricular activities because I didn't like being held to a certain timeline.
Yeah.
School, right? Gotta go, right? Once that was not a requirement anymore, don't even get me started on jury duty. I don't always like being told that I have to be somewhere.
Yeah.
So kids sports are gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna love it.
And the coaches too.
The coaches, the parents.
Good luck with that.
I'll be cool about it. At the end of the day, I'm gonna be trying to, want to buy a house, So gotta keep that that good image with the parents. The coaches, that's a whole other subject. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna be like that. But no, I do want my kids to play sports, and I think sports teach you a lot of valuable lessons. And my son looks like he probably built like a football player. I'm gonna try and push him towards golf or baseball or something like that. But at the same time, he wants to play football, and he's built like a Viking, which it seems like he's going that way. I'm not going to stop him. It is what it is. As much as I love the game, I know it's dangerous, and, it's something that I probably would cringe. But if he wants to hit some dudes, I'm not gonna stop him.
That's funny.
I love it.
Well, we'll look to wrap it up, but our one big question that we love to ask everybody is, through the highs and lows of this business, because it can be difficult, it can be great. Where's your identity, and how does it keep you moving forward through all the highs and lows?
My identity.
Yeah.
I just I want to be known as a good dad, good friend, good son-in-law. Just try to be there for my family, my friends as much as possible. I'm a very transparent person. I'm sometimes too honest. That gets me in trouble. My mouth, foot insert mouth. But I think they all know I mean well, and I get told by my friends that I have the worst case of FOMO ever, because there are situations where if I have to miss it because we don't have a sitter, or we're out of town, or we can't do something, they're always like, oh boy, John's FOMO's kicking in. And it's because I just love life experiences. I love everything about it, and I don't want to miss it. So when you feel like you're missing out, it kind of sucks. But patience, being a father, having kids, learning how to not have to be there for everything, has helped me a little bit with that. But mostly my identity, I just want to be known as an honest realtor that just wants to help you improve your quality of life. As much as I can put a mark on that in any way. I tell some of my clients, you're going to buy a house 5 years from now, you'll have enough equity to go get the house you want. So think of your first house as the house you need. Think of the next house as the house you want.
Yeah.
And I think that really resonates with them, because it helps them maybe change their tactics on what they're looking for. And it also helps them change their location of where they're looking to. I tell them schools are everything.
Mm-hmm.
Schools give you your resale value. Not to switch it to real estate, but those are conversations that I like to have, and I think that I try to take the mile for my clients and for my friends and family. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know if that was a real answer or not.
No, it's
Yeah.
good. It was good.
So thank you guys for coming to watch Greater Than Real Estate today with John Jordan. We appreciate everyone for logging on, listening, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcast. We also want to shout out to Tap In Studios, who allows us to do the podcast here. We have some great resources here at Tap In Studios. So if you do have any interest in doing a podcast, reach out to us. We'd love to get you connected. But other than that, thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Appreciate
being
it.
here,
Thank you,
John.
everyone. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.